My name is Ahmed Badruddin. I'm CEO of Citylitics, and I'm joined by Jim Lauria, who is VP of Sales and Marketing at Mazzei. Very thrilled to have you all. So again, I'm going to share my screen and kick this webinar off. And our goal, we have sales and business development leaders and professionals from various public infrastructure industries here that have joined us today, and we're looking forward to sharing some learnings and best practices around early stage sales intelligence. Feel free to use the Q&A feature as you have questions, but just overall structure and housekeeping things. We'll make the recording available. Please post any questions you have as they come. The topics we want to cover today, first, just talk a little bit about what is early stage sales intelligence. How do you prepare your team to leverage Citylitics? How do you leverage Citylitics customer success? How do you use this intelligence to add value to your channel partners? How do you deepen understanding of upcoming project opportunities? How do you work with us to refine this intelligence on an ongoing basis? And how do you use this to stay ahead of market trends and position yourself as an industry thought leader? I'm myself, co-founder and CEO of Citylitics. Have a background in data and AI, and started this company 13 years ago today. And the whole goal was, how do we empower sales and business development professionals in public infrastructure industries with predictive early stage sales intelligence? And across the journey, which we've had some exciting milestones, and there's a lot more that we need to build and grow towards. But we've seen a lot of great successes, a lot of challenges that our sales team have in terms of breaking into new markets or growing. And so we're pretty excited to welcome Jim Lauria. We'll have an introduction shortly. Who's been a customer of Citylitics and has had a lot of success using our data and our platform to generate sales growth. So we'll start off with a few slides, just introductory slides, so we can just get level set around Citylitics and Mazzei. And then we'll move into a discussion where Jim and I will talk through a bunch of topics. Then we also hope that if there's any questions or anything that you guys want to learn or ask directly, please feel free to engage. And a little about Citylitics and why we exist. Our whole focus is delivering intelligence on future infrastructure projects and opportunities in US and Canada. So that's where we're unique. Our whole focus is, how do we give our customers data-driven sales intelligence that helps them reposition, identify projects, and develop relationships and influence the direction of a future RFP. But I'd say that's one way of using the data. I think there's other ways to benefit from the data. There's also getting richer data to better understand customers and prospects and upcoming opportunities, getting data to prioritize sales pipeline activity, which opportunities to engage with now, which opportunities to engage with down the road. And also, when there are strategic marketing campaigns, when there are strategic growth initiatives, there are ways that data can be a big accelerant in terms of growth. And our customers range from manufacturers, suppliers, engineering firms, construction firms within public infrastructure, spanning multiple verticals from water to transportation to broadband to power electricity. We've got offices in Toronto, Ontario, Austin, Texas, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So if you're in any of those areas, you'd like to visit us, please drop us a note. And just to explain a little bit about what's unique about Citylitics, if you think of, and you all are in the public infrastructure market, so I'm sure you can relate, but there's a lot of activity that happens along the way before a city or municipality or an agency goes to an RFP. They typically start with having some kind of infrastructure issue or problem or need. They're planning out projects, they're doing a pre-design, they're seeking funding for the project, and then eventually it goes to RFP. Now, step 1 to 4, as you all know, takes many years, and there's a lot of activity that happens as cities are preparing for defining what that project is going to be. And along that way, there's a lot of what we call a digital footprint, a lot of different activities and insights that can be tracked to see what a specific city or utility is doing. And so that's what we focus on. Is this the kind of intelligence that we provide to our customers? And historically, there's other ways to get this data too. There's boots on the ground business development and sales, going to trade shows, events, networking, referrals, and whatnot. But we just believe that there's ways that data can really accelerate that process for our customers, and that's what we've focused on. We don't do any RFP or bid tracking. There's a lot of great solutions in the market for that purpose. our whole point of focus is how do we help our customers get in before the RFP and secure that winning position. And a little bit of how we do this. So we're tracking over 40,000 cities, utilities, agencies across the US and Canada. We're confident it is the largest, most comprehensive inventory of any agency or with a public infrastructure. They generate millions and millions of public documents ranging from council meeting minutes to capital improvement plans to studies to public notices and all kinds of different documents. So first step is we aggregate and ingest anything that gets published. Then we have a combination of artificial intelligence technology, industry expertise to track signals of these future opportunities. So that's what our extraction phase does. And then we are heavily focused on quality assurance and the data quality. So we have over 20 in-house data analysts that are continually reviewing these results and making sure that these results are accurate from an indicator of what type of project it is, what timing of the project, what should be tagged with. And then, well, one thing that we realize is every customer has different nuances and different focus areas, different things that they care about. And there's a lot of data out there. So, we don't want to overwhelm our users with data. And so we develop what we call a digital search plan. And essentially, that is the configuration of what does a user see, and they can define their preferences. So what types of projects they're interested in, what type of sales intelligence they want to see, anything from a regional or scope or keyword basis, we store all that. And we also have these feedback mechanisms. So as you use the data, we have kind of like LinkedIn where you can like, dislike, bullseye, and you can tag your feedback. And then we learn the more you use a product, and we keep refining it, because the more we can get it more and more on point to our users, the more powerful the platform becomes. So that's at a high level what Citylitics does. If you want to learn more, you can go on our website. I will introduce Jim Lauria to speak a little bit about his background and his company for a couple of slides.
Yeah, thanks, Ahmed. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak about how we've used Citylitics in our business. I've been over 25 years of experience in the water sector and enhancing sales and driving growth in water infrastructure and technology. I've got a LinkedIn newsletter, To Know Water is to Love Water, that I write about different issues around it. And then I co-host a podcast with Adam Tank of Transcend Water. Water we're talking about with a number of different guests. So water's been my life. I've been involved with it a long time. And, you can tell I love it. And always appreciate the opportunity to speak about what I do and what Mazzei Injector does. So Mazzei Injector, we're a company that's a broad range of water treatment systems. Our mission statement is we're dedicated to conducting business with honesty, integrity, and responsiveness in development and application of innovative science-based technologies to make more efficient use of the world's water resources. We're an industry leader in water solutions, mostly around injection of both liquid and gas technologies. We're pioneers in data-driven sales technologies, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how we use Citylitics for that. And then we have a commitment to knowledge sharing. We don't only keep the information in-house, but during trade publications, industry conferences, we like to let people know what the macro trends are. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're using Citylitics to improve our position there as well.
Thank you, Jim. And we can transition now to a webinar discussion. Very thrilled that you were willing to have this conversation and share how you've used Citylitics and what you've learned and what has worked well for you. I'd like to just kick it off by just hearing kind of from you for the audience. What is the value of early stage intelligence? Why bother pursuing at early stage? Why not just wait for the RFP? Because that's a common question that often comes up in market strategy discussions.
Sure. So if you wait for the RFP, you've got a lot less opportunity to influence the project design. And so the sooner you can know about what's going on, the scope of the project, what's happening, we're better able to promote our technical advantages and have influence on that. And we're also able to identify the decision makers early. So we can see, is it a consulting engineer that's driving the specs? Is it the utility that's really making the decisions? How the contractors are involved? So that we can really have a better vision of what's happening early So we've got that capability of making some influencing decisions to help people choose our technology and show the benefits of what we've really got in place.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. So without sharing any, call it keeping anonymous, the customer or possible customer, anything you can share about how you all approach a city at the early stages, how you build relationships, any examples of that, what that looks like for your team?
Yeah, sure. So we've got some different technologies and different applications. So in one case, anytime ozone is brought into a water reuse or a drinking water application, we should be involved there. So we're going to be seeing, okay, is a consulting engineer talking about that early? Can we see who the people are, the decision makers within that utility? Can we start to understand the scope, the funding, and so we're better able to kind of make that decision. And we have a lot of information coming to us from a lot of different areas. And with our OEMs that we're working with, they're telling us different things about a project, consulting engineer. So we're trying to triangulate the information, corroborate some information, see if all of it, timelines, funding, scope, so we can better understand what that might mean to us over the long term.
And how does Citylitics specifically and the intelligence that we provide help you in terms of identifying these projects or getting more intelligence at the earlier stages?
Yeah, so what we do is we have some keywords, right? We give the keywords to Citylitics and they kind of target those. So like I said, ozone is a really important application for us. Anytime it's there, we know we're going to be part of that. We could potentially be part of that process. On the other hand, we've got technologies around aeration where it's a small subset of our business. So when we use the keywords, the more specific the keywords we are in that aeration, we can maybe target better and understand, okay, that's an application for Mazzei, or no, that isn't for us. That's for somebody else. That's for another technology that we're really not competing against. So those keywords are important. And then the other thing that's really important for us is the way Citylitics has these monthly refinement meetings and with your customer success manager who keeps us on focus and also continually refines this. No, that was a good project. That wasn't a good project for us. Yes, that was a good one. And we involve our sales managers to make sure that they're involved and they can pick and choose, okay, these leads are good, these not so great.
Okay, so just for everyone's context, so we at Citylitics provide data. There's the intelligence platform. We configure it to your needs, and we also have a customer success team whose whole job is to make sure our customers and our users are getting value and getting the intelligence they need. So as things change, we can adapt with our customers and our users. Jim, if you wouldn't mind maybe sharing a little bit more specifically, what has your experience been like working with our success team?
Yeah, so I mean, they're very dedicated and they're professional, and the name customer success is not a coincidence. They very much want us to succeed, and they keep us on point. And so, and we talked about this, Ahmed. I not only have my sales managers involved in every monthly call, but I also have my marketing manager. She's there so we can see trends that maybe we want to report about. And then I actually have my director of engineering so he can keep an eye on what's happening in the field because he's doing the design work. Him and his team are doing the design work. So that's a lot of the ways that we're using the team. We prepare very well before and after. And we feel obligated because Katie keeps us on track. I mean, we don't want to show up to the meeting and we're not prepared. So that's the main part of it, dedication to making sure that we're getting the most value out of what Citylitics is offering us.
Yeah, I appreciate bringing it up because something we've learned as well is it's not just about the data. The value is created based on what our customers do with our data. And so we solve for both things. So what specifically could you talk a bit about how do you prepare before the meeting with Katie and after, what kinds of activities do you have your team do?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
advice do
So
you have for, let's say, a new customer who just signed on Citylitics and they haven't gone through those learnings yet with that you have?
sure. So the sales team, they're looking at it from a lead standpoint. They're looking at project by project. And they're saying, okay, this ozone project is worthwhile to investigate. We know about it. And honestly, we know about almost every ozone project that you've brought to us. The good news about that with what we've seen is, again, we corroborate some information. We see that some information isn't there. And on the other side, we're also seeing that there's extra information and extra contacts, mostly at the utility level, because usually when we're working with these projects and through a consulting engineer, we have that connection. We don't have the connection downstream. So it gives us more of an opportunity there. So the salespeople are looking at, is this a good opportunity? What did we know? What don't we know? Is this a new aeration? On the other side is different, as we mentioned. So aeration, we're trying to find, okay, is this really something we should go after? Should we give it to one of our rep firms? And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure, about how we've involved our rep network, our municipal manufacturers rep network, using the information we're getting from Citylitics. And we're trying to determine, how can we influence this, and what can we do to talk to those different decision makers, whether it's the contractor, the utility, the consulting engineer, whoever those people might be.
Yeah. So maybe circling back to something you had said where you knew about the project, but you got additional information that you could triangulate. Any example for the audience? Again, without anything confidential, but just
yeah. So I mean, I think it's where we knew that it was a certain size project, or we heard it was a certain size project in terms of the flow rates, how many million gallons a day they were actually, we had heard it was, and what we saw was different from that. And obviously, so for us, we segregate some of our projects to the sales team based on size. So we looked at the size of the project and said, well, we heard it's one size from one set of decision makers. We heard it's another size from another, and then we heard a different size from Citylitics. So then that made us reinvestigate it, and which one of our sales team members should really take over that particular project. Now, that's on the sales side, right? Now, on my side, I'm looking at it from a macro view. So I'm looking at all these different projects to see what the trends are for the overall business of, let's say, ozone, and looking at it from a different perspective. And then, as I said, our marketing manager, she's looking at it from a different perspective of what we're all looking at. So each one of us has our own particular way of trying to extract information to be better able to do our jobs, from what our position is in the company.
Yeah, no, there's different use cases for different users, so appreciate you sharing that. On the element of just preparing, any advice you have for someone who, maybe just new with Citylitics and really wants to get to that level that you've gotten and achieved over the years?
So I'm responsible for the sales and marketing team, so they know they better come prepared. So that's the critical thing of and look, my CEO knows how much we're paying for the service, and so he's making sure that I'm extracting as much value as possible. So we've really examined what the value is, and so the sales team needs to come in and be ready to say which project on their list is a win, is something we need. And And if it's not, we need to be clear about that, because that's how you're refining what the next search is. And it's an iterative process. And so every meeting is building on the last one and is building on future ones. So that's the critical thing, is recognizing that it's not just a one-off. It's a continuing process, and we need to be prepared for each monthly meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. So something that a lot of sales leaders in your position, that when they come across Citylitics, they often think about, how am I going to get my team to use it? How are we going to maximize ROI? And what did you find were the key steps to preparing your team to effectively use Citylitics intelligence?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, get in there, right? And look at the information, and knowing what our projects are, and knowing, okay, how does this compare to some of the things we already have on our radar? So that's the first thing. Getting into it and being ready for the monthly meeting with your customer success person, with Katie, because we know we're gonna, and also, okay, once we get that information, downloading it into our information and putting it into our database, not only from an aspect of the project information, but I actually take the people, the decision makers, and we put them in our contact database. So now we have them as a connection that we might not have had before. And we'll talk about how that's important, not only for us, but for some of our business partners.
You spoke a bit about refining, and so when you give feedback and there's an iteration, any examples you could share around maybe a type of feedback you shared, or how the collaboration led to something more effective or more precise to your needs?
Yeah, so I mean, we talked a little bit about that corroboration of information. I mean, that's probably the most important thing. One of the things we saw was that this is pretty important. We saw that there was a group that was interested in ozone, and we ended up seeing how we could do a lunch and learn for that particular group. And we scheduled a lunch and learn so that they had a better understanding of how Mazzei technology could be applied for that application. And so it gave us a heads up, and we were able to explain our technology before they were actually going out to bid. I mean, you can't get any better than that. So that was a big win for us to get in front of the people that were going to make the ultimate decision, because the utilities and in our business, the consulting engineers specify the equipment and the technology. The contractors buy and install it, but at the end of the day, the operators are going to be the ones operating it. So we want to show, and each one of them has their own different value proposition, right? And so we really want to tell our story to each one of those, why our technology is the right one specifically for them, across the board. And that's how the decision is going to be made. If we can tell everybody why Mazzei's technology is the right one for specifically their thinking, so the operators, they have a specific way of looking at it that may not align with the contractors or the consulting engineers.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. So maybe shifting gears a little bit, as you talked about, you can do lunch and learn, you can reach out to the city, you can triangulate the information around what you're hearing from consultants or contractors and yourself. But let's shift gears to picture a business development professional or a sales professional that's, their job is to go and break into new cities. And it's a tough thing to do, because cities are not the easiest customers to break in.
Sure.
What have you found has been effective in building those relationships, building new relationships, that you would share as advice to the audience here?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So number one, if you're trying to break into new areas, you probably have some channel partner. For us, it'd be manufacturers reps. And so if you can give them better visibility of the projects you think are most effective for selling into that particular region, area, city, whatever it might be, then they're inclined to go in because they've got armed with intelligence, with information that doesn't have them just go in, hey, are there any projects that might be available for us to talk about? So that's the most important thing, because as you're going forward, you can't be everywhere at once. We've got a small sales team, so we're relying on those channel partners to really help us with telling our story. And the more information we have to help tell our story for them is really important. Plus, when we give them information about a particular utility, they're getting information not only that helps them tell our story, but they've got other principals that they're trying to sell other products to that aren't competitive to Mazzei. They have a full line card of products. And so now we become a more valuable partner to them with the information that Citylitics is giving us around a particular utility or project.
Yeah, no, appreciate you sharing that. So I guess for broader context, a lot of our customers are manufacturers like yourselves. They often go to market with third-party rep firms in different geographies. And this has been one way that you found to become more valuable to your rep network. Could you speak a little bit to how those conversations went? How did you introduce this concept? How did you get alignment around this is what they will do with the information? I think that could be an interesting learning for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, having conversation with manufacturers reps, look, as I said, they have a lot of product lines, right? And they're trying to sell as much product lines as can. So anything you can give them as a tool to make their jobs easier is always going to be welcome. And so when we started with Citylitics, we let them know that we were introducing this program. And one thing that Citylitics does is they make it easy to download the information so it's transferable to the rep firms. And so once we started telling them, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. I mean, it's all about communication and communicating to them that, look, we're trying to help you. And the feedback from them is also going to help us to do that refinement, right? No, that wasn't a good lead. You might have thought it was a good lead from your perspective, Mazzei, but from ours, it really wasn't. So they're part of that whole process of refining the information coming back to you, to Citylitics, to give us better data, right? So that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
And then whether it was your sales team or your rep firms, what were some of the biggest questions or hesitations that came up as you introduced the program, and how did you have those conversations with them about it?
Yeah. So yeah, of course, it's always, are you going to give us leads and they're going to be a waste of our time, right? For everybody. And so, that's the biggest thing. You can have a whole list of leads out there and they're going to go after them. And so I think the idea is targeted leads, right? And this iterative process of trying to refine it so that whatever we bring them is something of a reality. Not maybe all the time, but as you get, hone that in, you're getting better and better information so that there's less and less wasted time on our side and on the rep side as well.
Great. So I guess something we could pivot towards is how you use the data for thought leadership, for market trends, for positioning Citylitics as positioning Mazzei as a thought leader. So what I'm going to do is share some slides of what we collaborated on, and then if you wouldn't mind speaking to it a bit.
Sure. Yeah, so I was going to be speaking at a conference in Japan on trends in the North American ozone market. And you and I spoke about this, and you and your team were gracious enough to put together some information for us, for me to present. And it was very well received. And it opened up the door to have a lot of deep conversations about what was going on in Japan and what was going on in Asia. And so this information, it really told a good story and an exciting story for us. And then we gave it again to the International Ozone Association meeting in Las Vegas in August, and it showed the trends of what's happening in the ozone marketplace to be excited about. That people were looking at ozone as more of an opportunity going forward.
Yeah, and just for context for everyone in the webinars, so one of the ways to use Citylitics is very targeted project opportunities. And so our process, we try to understand what are the types of projects we're going after, and then how do we configure your accounts and your feeds to get you the best possible intelligence. But as we're ingesting so many documents from so many utilities, our system also notices a lot of activity. And so one of the things that we collaborated with Mazzei on was we could monitor mentions of ozone and see how that is changing over time, to see are cities and utilities talking about it more now than before, and what is the rate of change. And obviously this concept applies to any type of mention. So this is something that we worked together on that was particularly well received. And Jim, is there anything you want to add on this slide that we have?
Yeah, so this one's about water reuse and the importance of taking what used to be called wastewater and to recycle it for beneficial use. And you can see the map, some of the areas that are more involved in the water reuse projects than others. So we had more vision. Obviously, we're sharing this with the rep firms in the area because they understand, okay, if we're in California, that's a big market for us. And you can see the growth of it. And again, we not only shared this at industry conferences, but we also are putting this in our lunch and learns, in our company presentations, so that we can really show where we're ahead of the curve, that Mazzei's really thinking in terms of long-term opportunities. And you know, we like to say that we want to make sure that the industry is benefiting, not only Mazzei, but the industry is benefiting from what we're extracting from Citylitics, because I always joke about it in every presentation I make. A rising tide lifts all boats. And if we don't understand that in the water industry, there's no hope for us. So we want to make sure people know about it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So could you speak a little bit about what was the process like to work with Citylitics to generate this data, big steps that we took to get here from your perspective?
Yeah, so, you know, you and I went back and forth, again, an iterative process, what we were looking for, what I had seen over the course of time of working with Citylitics on some of the projects and the trends, kind of pulled information. Okay, these ozone projects were focused on drinking water. These ozone projects were focused on water reuse. How can we kind of map those and look at them? And then you provided some data from your team. I looked at them. I said, well, I think we're getting there, but you know, there's a little more work that we can maybe sort out. And it came together pretty quickly, and definitely in time for our presentations. I think we started working, it wasn't too long, maybe 2 months before my presentation in Japan, and then we used that again in August, and then we've been using that information. In fact, we used some of those slides when we presented at WEFTech just this last couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, very cool. And for those of you who know, WEFTech is the largest wastewater conference in the US, possibly the world. So there is a question that we got from the audience, and it's how does this apply to our business? Would you vet out projects for new locations beyond the projects you were using an example? So yeah, our how it works is our first step is to understand what is the customer looking for. So what types of project opportunities? So in Jim's case, it's water reuse, ozone, disinfection, UV, whatnot. And so that's step one, is what types of projects, what stage. of the life cycle that our customers want to get involved. And as you can imagine, it's not as straightforward as just plugging that keyword ozone error, because that'll generate a lot of results, a lot of noise. And so our systems are designed to look for signals of future project opportunities for our core product. And so we look for what's the intent, and in our process that we've got indicators, search algorithms, and methods to uncover future project opportunities. And then we match that with our customers' need. And then we have an ongoing refinement process, which is kind of what Jim was speaking to, which is as our customers use the product and hit like dislike bullseye, we monitor that feedback, but also have conversations to just hear directly from the user to say, yeah, this is exactly kind of what we're looking for. This is not as bullseye. And at the end of the day, data is never going to be 100% perfect, but the closer we're getting, the more on point it's getting, the more useful it's getting, and when generating opportunities at a high enough rate, that's what creates value for our customers. It's like there was another question here. It's a question for Jim. Have you expanded your geographical reach over time because of this insights from Citylitics?
Yeah, that's a good question. I sort of come in, but so we've been in the business for 40 years. So we've been around for a while, and we've been touching in North America almost every geographical area. But as I showed with that map, it does give us a bit of ability to focus more on certain regions. So I wouldn't say we've expanded, but we've used Citylitics to understand maybe, okay, let's put a little more focus in that area than in another region. And so that's more of how we've used it rather than expansion in North America, more about, okay, these are the places where we really see the biggest opportunities.
Got it. Great. And so maybe something a little bit more forward looking, because I personally think it's pretty exciting time to be in infrastructure in general, and for your universe, a little bit more water industry. But what are you most excited about over the next few years around water and water industry and your business? And yeah, we can speak to a little bit of that. Where do you think we're going, and what are you most excited about?
Well, water quality is always going to be a key issue, and there's going to be a lot of issues around drought, around too much water, not enough water, more contamination. I mean, you can't pick up the paper without reading about lead in drinking water lines, PFAS. It's more and more of an issue. And one of the things about water is that we're becoming better at seeing contaminants to a smaller and smaller level. And it's the thinking is, if you can measure those contaminants to a certain level, then you should probably be able to remove them to that level. And that just means that there's going to be more technologies that are going to be required. Water scarcity is going to be more and more of an issue discussed. And so we really feel like we're right in the middle of it. And we've got a lot of different technologies around solving those water quality issues and those water scarcity issues.
Great. There's another question came up. How have you found the intelligence that Citylitics has provided led to your customers develop new products and services to emerging demand? So I guess the question is more, sorry?
Yeah, next generation of products. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm glad someone brought that up, because we just developed a new product that we thought was going to be a good product in the space. And we started just within the last couple of months looking at how we can promote that using Citylitics data. And so, yeah, I mean, next generation products is where it's at. So absolutely, we can definitely use that for products we have developed internally, and also from macro view, from my 30,000 foot level, what's happening. Some of those graphs that you presented, were things that I can think about. Hey, we see some trends going here, because for drinking water disinfection, the level of ozone that you need to put in water to do that disinfection is much lower than when you're looking at water reuse projects. The amount of ozone that needs to be put in there because of the organics and whatever of the contaminants you're trying to remove, you need a higher concentration of ozone. So by looking at that, we're knowing, hey, these designs are going to be more involved than the ones we traditionally used for drinking water disinfection.
Yeah, no, I think I'm glad someone brought that question up too, because it's one of the things that gets us excited to at Citylitics, because if, something that I noticed over the years was a lot of these strategic decisions were just made based on intuition, feeling, conferences, talking to other peers, but there wasn't true bottoms up data around what do cities utilities actually need, what are they talking about, what are they putting in their capital improvement plans, what are they going to spend money on. And so that's something where we call it market analytics, but something we want to keep growing, because the more we can arm our customers with it, it helps them make those decisions, also accelerate the time to market for a new product and service, and find the right types of opportunities. There's another question.
I thought I saw another question about how do we ensure that the sales managers follow through on these? Well, that's an easy one. It's on all their performance evaluations. I just did some of the performance evaluations, and that's part of it. How well are they keeping up with that? They know it's part of what they're expected to do. And so when we have those meetings, it's okay. Number one, how'd you do last year? Number two, how we're going to improve working with this valuable resource going into 2025.
Yeah, and I'm glad someone brought that question, because now one of the struggles that maybe some sales leaders or challenges that will have is most of the competition is based on closing a project, and by definition, the insights we're creating are early, so it's years before the project actually happens. Right. So how have you spoke to a little bit around adding it to your performance reviews, but anything else you would share with the audience here? Any advice on how to incentivize both things, long-term and short-term?
Yeah, it's like the pipeline, right? I mean, you got to keep that pipeline full. And so that's part of what we do as sales leaders. It's not only what we're closing today, because you're right. I mean, a lot of our water treatment projects are 2, 3, 4 years out. And so you need to look at it from a lot of different perspectives and close the sales today. But the information and the upfront work you do about getting your technology specified makes it a lot easier to close those sales in the future. So, I mean, the upfront work is invaluable in closing those sales if you look at it from a short-term basis, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple more questions. So someone also asked, part of it was, does it connect to your CRM systems? So Citylitics, we do have a way to connect, and if Jim, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so in fact, we're looking at changing CRM systems right now. Right now, our system isn't connected to Citylitics, but the new one will be. It's important for us. We're keeping track of the connections, the people. So we're putting them in our own CRM. The salespeople are doing that. You make it pretty easy to do the spreadsheets and connecting up with the rep firms to get them the information, because obviously we've got rep firms in different parts of the country, so we have to make sure that we only send the leads to each individual rep firm. So it's pretty seamless. One of the things I want to bring up is your customer success managers. Compliment you on the training, because we've had several. One of them, our first one, went out on maternity leave. She was really great. And then, you're always concerned about, well, we had a really good one. What's going to happen with the next one? And Katie's been fantastic. And so it points to how they're trained and how they feel dedicated to making sure that we get the most value out of the platform.
No, appreciate sharing that. We're looking forward to Hillary being back, and we also just put a lot of emphasis on customer success, because the more our customers are successful with their data, the more successful we're going to be. I wanted to go back to CRM for a second, because it's something that I'm sure a lot of sales leaders think about. And so you talked about your changing CRMs, and you could speak a little bit to what leads to those decisions around what CRM you pick and what leads to changing it, and any advice you have for other sales leaders here.
Yeah, I think it's basically how seamless it is to integrate into what we're doing across our projects. The big thing is, can it really help us have better visibility on the projects? Again, and that's part of why we've engaged with Citylitics, is it's about visibility to the projects, short term and long term. And so how does the CRM give us information that we can extract and use to the benefit of closing sales? That's the key thing.
Yeah, great. Now we're running a little bit close to time, but there's another part of a question sent, which was, did the sales team have to reorient their thinking about how they approach opportunities? I feel like you addressed it a little bit.
Yeah.
But, we could speak to it for.
Yeah, so we have a very technical sales team. I mean, they're not only salespeople, but they're engineers for the most part, and they understand the applications. So they're looking at it from, okay, how do I understand what the technical aspects that Citylitics is bringing to us, the overall decisions around why a particular technology is specified. So, I mean, they've got a foot in both worlds, right? They're process oriented, and they're salespeople. They want to close the sales, but they also recognize that they've got to tell the story around the technical benefits that Mazzei's technology has to offer. So, well, we all enjoy that kind of discussion, and that's critical for us to be able to go and talk to, because for the most part, we're talking to other engineers. We're talking to engineers that are making decisions based on how they see a technical solution. So that's pretty much what we do as salespeople.
Oh, amazing. But I didn't want to leave our email addresses for anyone who wants to reach out or whether speak to Jim about just sales leadership within an equipment supplier, manufacturer, water industry. Any questions you have for Jim, or any questions you have for myself around data and intelligence and sales intelligence, as well as what I've seen across hundreds of sales teams across public infrastructure, and what has worked and what has not worked. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. I appreciate your time here. Hopefully you learned something new, and any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out. Have a good rest of your week.
Ahmed, thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with the group.
Thank you, Jim. Take care.